Hi, my name's Eric, welcome back to my channel. Let's talk about Fiona Apple. As you might know from my video on my favorite albums of the 2010s, I consider the Idler Wheel to be an absolute model of incredible songwriting, lyricism, and vocals, so you can safely assume that I've been highly anticipating Fiona Apple's first album in almost 8 years. In lieu of a reaction video, I really wanted to take a deep dive into Fiona's lyrics here, so I'm going to be taking an almost line-by-line look at a lot of these songs, but in the interest of time, I'm going to be skipping some details and verses just so that I don't make an excessively long video. Some things I'm not going to skip though are issues relating to sexual assault and the Me Too movement, so if that's not something you're comfortable hearing about, the song that it most explicitly comes up on is For Her, but just in general, listen at your own discretion. Before I dive into my analysis, let me know in the comments down below what your favorite Fiona Apple song is. Please subscribe to be here when I post new videos every week and hit the bell icon to be notified when my videos go live. Without further ado, track number 1 is I Want You to Love Me, and Fiona opens the song saying, "I've waited many years, every print I left upon the track has led me here, but next year it'll be clear this was only leading to that, and by that time I hope that you love me." She connects her desperateness to be loved to a fatalistic or teleological view, the view that everything in life or in a story leads up to one particular moment or goal. And of course that end goal is love, but on the second verse she pivots and says, "I move with the trees in the breeze, I know that time is elastic, and I know when I go all my particles disband and disperse and I'll be back in the pulse." On the first verse, even though she felt like love was just taking its course, she was an active participant in pursuing that love. She was leaving her prints on the track, making a mark, taking her steps toward love. But on the second verse, the breeze moves her. She's light as a feather, languid and movable. And she says she's powerless because of the meaninglessness of time and because of mortality. On the first verse, time was moving in a straight line towards love, but now time is elastic. It can stretch and squeeze. So the idea that she brought up of waiting for next year is no longer relevant. She's going to die anyway, so why fight time when it's immutable? This is her trying to suppress her desire for love. But then, before the second chorus, she changes her mind again, saying, "And I know none of this will matter in the long run, but I know a sound is still a sound around no one. And while I'm in this body, I want somebody to want." So once again, time and mortality are motivating factors. If time is limited, might as well spend it pursuing love. She obliquely brings up the question, if a tree falls in the forest and no one is around to hear it, does it make a sound? And here, the answer is yes. And it specifically applies to love, because even if no one knows it existed, it's still worth pursuing. Even if it's temporary and will disintegrate in the winds of time, it's worth it. Track number 2 is Shameika, and on the first verse she talks about her early musical instinct, saying that she would grind her teeth to make a rhythm, which is something that I do, and she would step on leaves to emulate percussion. And on the pre-chorus she talks about being in class and marking units of time, which on the one hand shows that she was bored and maybe should have been somewhere that she could be free and explore music. And on the other hand could be a musical instinct relating to time signatures, but admittedly that's a bit of a stretch. And of course on the chorus she repeats, "Shameika said I had potential," even at that age her school friends acknowledging that she had something special. So this is sort of a musician's origin story. On the second verse she moves from her early musical potential to her early outsider status. She says, "I used to march down the windy sidewalk, slapping my leg with a riding crop, thinking it made me come off so tough. I didn't smile because a smile always seemed rehearsed. I wasn't afraid of the bullies, and that just made the bullies worse." These ideas come up again on the title track, which is why I can say now that these sort of parallel her position as an outsider in the music industry. But specifically here, she brings up marching through the wind, and on the opener, a breeze represented the immutability of time. So these are her early struggles against time, just like the timekeeping she does on each pre-chorus. She also brings the idea of wind back on the third verse when she says that she is a good man in a storm, so she's trying to assert herself against these forces. The use of the riding crop comes from horseback riding, and to my understanding is sort of just meant like as a little slap to get the horses to run faster and to keep going. So she's basically fashioning herself from this age into a workhorse, but with sort of more of a masochistic standoffish edge. She's also resistant to appearing rehearsed. She doesn't want performance or affect. And she's resistant to oppressive authority in the form of the bullies, so all of this can be connected basically to the music industry machine. One line from the third verse that I wanted to take a look at was, "And when the fall is torrential, I'll recall," which leads back, of course, into the chorus and Shameika's words of encouragement. So what she's saying is, when I feel like the world is against me just like the wind and the bullies of my childhood, I will remember Shameika's words of encouragement and remember that I have the music in me and that the Shameikas of the world can see that. Track number 3 is the title track, Fetch the Bolt Cutters, and on this track she opens by talking about her struggles with the music industry, which of course connects back to the prior track. She talks about wanting to be someone's friend, but as is common in songs about the music business, it wasn't genuine. She says, "I know you and I know what you can do, and I don't want a war with you, I won't afford it. You get sore even when you win." So basically we're back to an adult version of the bullies from Shameika. Something that I wanted to point to was the adversarial masculinity of the language here, because that's something that comes up throughout the album. And she connects power and sway to aggression and bullying, and specifically to men. And she continues this on the second verse when she says, "And you maim when you're on offense, but you kill when you're on defense. And you've got them all convinced that you're the means and the end." So the Hollywood power structure, she's saying, doesn't need to be like this, and this man, this violent character, is an example of why it is the way it is. His offense is just his self-interest. It's belligerent, but it's not as bad as his defense when he is challenged. And that's when he kills someone, likely destroying their career. And this is the classic story of the Me Too movement. On the third verse, Fiona says, "I've always been too smart for that, but you know what? My heart was not. I took it like a kid, you see. The cool kids voted to get rid of me." This childlike language ties it back to Shameika, where the schoolyard bullying structure parallels the music industry structure. So when she says on the chorus, "Fetch the bolt cutters, I've been in here too long," she's done with the music industry, with the executives, with the bullies, all of it. Later in the song, she talks about how she was criticized for not being stylish enough and for crying too much, just like she didn't like smiling as a kid. Another few amazing lines toward the end of the song are, "I thought being blacklisted would be grist for the mill until I realized I'm still here. I grew up in the shoes they told me to fill, shoes that were not made for running up that hill." First of all, wow. Second, she's saying she wishes that the industry struggles could have been her creative fuel, but she sees that even after her 20+ year career, nothing has changed and the industry still has the same expectations of her. And with that reference to running up that hill, she implies that she was expected to be a new Kate Bush, which honestly that reference is just the cherry on top. Track number 4 is Under the Table, and on the intro she says, "I would beg to disagree, but begging disagrees with me." This is another statement of her unwillingness to submit or to compromise, and beyond that, it's a great play on words. The context for that statement becomes clear on the first verse when she is at a dinner party that she didn't want to go to, and she says, "So when they say something that makes me start to simmer, that fancy wine won't put out this fire." She's not going to stay quiet when something bothers her. The realization at the end of Fetch the Bolt Cutter is that even after all this time, no matter what she does, she will always have these expectations placed on her, has spurred her to sort of flout those expectations, even in personal situations. This is also a possible explanation for the album as a whole, as basically an outburst, an expression of anger. The title of the song shows up in the chorus when she says, "Kick me under the table all you want, I won't shut up." Her partner or business associate or whoever has dragged her to this party is trying to be a polite and diplomatic dinner guest, but Fiona isn't having any of it. And again, that's the insistence of her character in her career and in her personal life. She won't be silenced. On the second verse, she says, "I'd like to buy you a pair of pillow-soled hiking boots to help you with your climb, or rather to help the bodies that you step over along your route so they won't hurt like mine." So this is more explicitly connected to the industry bullies she talked about on the title track, and here she is mocking them. She's talked about her own shoes in her career and how she had to fill them, and here she's talking about powerful people in the industry, maybe executives, wearing boots. And she's saying, maybe I can give you pillow-soled boots to make it softer, more comfortable, easier for you as you step over and take advantage of people. Fiona knows what it's like to be the person who is being stepped over, and she wants that cycle of abuse to end. She later mentions that the dinner conversation revolved around a mutton, a cut of meat, and that this character could prowl, and again we have that predatory language. Specifically, the mentions of meat and bodies and also cookies feel like they're implying that the dinner conversation that upset her could have related to the content of the Me Too movement, to objectification and domination, but it's basically just an incipient undercurrent at this point. Track number 5 is Relay, and she opens the song with the chorus saying, "Evil is a relay sport when the one who's burnt turns to pass the torch." This is pretty clearly about a cycle of abuse. Hurt people hurt people. On the first verse, she again addresses characters who sound like powerful people in the music industry, saying that she resents them for being raised right, for being tall, for never getting opposition, for having each other, for being so sure, and for presenting their life like a propaganda brochure. These are the cool kids who voted her out earlier on the album. She's saying basically that they're privileged and that having each other and feeling safe in their bubble has made them secure in their cloistered point of view. And then the propaganda is them portraying themselves in the media, maybe social media, as perfect and specifically as unattainable because from the start, they were set up with advantages. On the pre-chorus, she says, "I see that you keep trying to bait me, and I love to get up in your face, but I know if I hate you for hating me, I will have entered the endless race." She has to take the high road here because otherwise she's joining the relay, perpetuating the cycle of abuse. It's the same issue that she faced since her childhood on Shameika. Ignoring the bullies makes the bullies worse, but fighting back means that they've won. Track number 6 is Rack of His, and on this song she returns to the theme of love that she introduced on the opener, saying that she has these unreciprocated loving gestures that she's made for this person who has now broken up with her. And she says on the chorus, "It was because I was loving you so much, it's the only reason I gave my time to you, and that's it, there's a kick and you've given up." Her preoccupation with time has reappeared here in the form of her conceptualizing a relationship as time given to someone. So just like love can make time elastic, it also can make love something that can be given, or more importantly, taken. And this ex doesn't feel that weight and has broken up with her after running into one bump in the road. On the second verse, her resentment comes out when she says, "Check out that rack of his. Look at that row of guitar necks, lined up like eager fillies, outstretched like legs of Rockettes." Colloquially, rack can refer to breasts and is usually used in a gross context. But here she's talking about his guitar rack. So there's something about his music and his musical career that's uncomfortably entangled with a sexual leeriness. She mentions eager fillies, which are young female horses, bringing back that horseback riding imagery of the riding crop from Shameika. She was one of his young fillies, like one of his guitars, a thing to be used. Maybe she was even used for his career. And then between the rack and the Rockette's legs, we have the general sense of an objectified woman's body. And then she continues, saying with reference to the guitars, "I thought you would wail on me like you wail on them, but it was just a coochie cuckoo." After the lyrics about the sexualized musical instruments, I think what she's getting at here is that she thought that this guy's passion that he applied to his music would translate to the bedroom, but it didn't. Coochie coo also, of course, is a pun, but it's infantilizing. Who exactly it's infantilizing is not entirely clear, but in any case, it's implying that this guy's romantic prowess amounted to child's play. Ouch. Track number 7 is Newspaper, and lyrically the song is more on the vague side, but in the context of the album, it seems like what Fiona is talking about here is a situation where she has broken up with this guy and now he is dating another woman, and this song is written to that other woman. So what she's trying to do is to share with that woman in the experience of having known this man and what he's like in private. She says in the past, she wanted to make this man proud of her, and then she wanted him to make amends. If this is about the ex on the last song, then of course this is her talking about moving from being like a doting partner to feeling slighted. She says to who I think is the new girlfriend, I wonder what lies he's telling you about me to make sure that we'll never be friends, and it's a shame because you and I didn't get a witness. We're the only ones who know. We were cursed the moment that he kissed us. From then on, it was his big show. Just like the line between love and a musical career became blurred on a rack of his, here, the relationship is a performance, just like the fakeness of the cool kids on Relay. She continues with this idea of trying to connect to this new girlfriend when she says, I grew concerned when I saw him start to covet you. When I learned what he did, I felt close to you. And still, Fiona and this new girlfriend are alienated from each other by this boyfriend, and Fiona says, you're wearing time like a flowery crown, sitting there. The flower crown is an adornment, a decoration. The time that this boyfriend is giving her by being in a relationship with her is decorative, performative, it's fake. Track number 8 is Ladies, and on the first verse she says, ruminations on the looming effect and the parallax view, and the figure and the form and the revolving door that keeps turning out more and more good women like you, yet another woman to whom I won't get through. I think Fiona is talking about the same type of woman as on Newspaper, a woman who has been turned against other women by a man. The looming effect and the parallax view from the first line are basically ways that the eye can play tricks on you from different perspectives. So she's saying that this woman is a victim of mind games that have distorted her view of other women. And of course, the revolving door is just another image of that cycle of abuse, of the relay. She continues about her ex's new girlfriend when she says, ladies, take it easy. When he leaves me, please be my guest to whatever I might have left in his kitchen cupboards. She seems to infantilize him again, talking right past him to his new partner. She's saying, I lived here, I put things where they are. You are a guest in my house. You are a tourist to the ruins of our relationship. And just like the shoes that she had to fill in her career, she talks about a dress in the closet. Don't get rid of it. You'd look good in it. I didn't fit in it. It was never mine. It belonged to the ex-wife of another ex of mine. She left it behind with a note, one line. It said, I don't know if I'm coming across, but I'm really trying. These are the expectations of a woman in the domestic sphere. To fit into a dress, to be beautiful, to be smaller. And it's an expectation that none of the women in the cycle of exes and their exes were able to fulfill. Finally, sincere Fiona comes through when she says, nobody can replace anybody else, so it would be a shame to make it a competition. It's unreasonable to make women who have just dated the same guy compete with each other, but that's the reality that they have to contend with and that Fiona wants to push back against. Track number 9 is Heavy Balloon, and on the first verse, she introduces a visual metaphor for what is very clearly depression, when she says, people like us, we play with a heavy balloon. We keep it up to keep the devil at bay, but it always falls way too soon. There is a constant, insurmountable struggle to keep this balloon floating, and it's a struggle of biblical proportions, like they're fighting the devil. On the chorus, she compares herself to different plants, saying, I spread like strawberries, I climb like peas and beans. And this is more optimistic. She is fruitful. She is growing, spreading, and climbing. She continues, I've been sucking it in so long that I'm bursting at the seams. And I'm not quite sure what it is. It could be the sort of passion and, creativity that has been suppressed by her depression, or it can be the sadness and the anger that it has created. But either way, it motivates her to be productive, to be fruitful, likely through her music. She has some more metaphors for depression on the second verse when she says, in the middle of the day, it's like the sun, but the Saharan one, staring me down. And later that it grows relentless like the teeth of a rat. It's just got to keep gnawing at me, and it constricts like a boa on the hose, nothing flows, so the pressure grows instead of a seed. We've got oppressive heat, biting, constriction, all of these physical manifestations of depression, just like the heaviness of the balloon. The implication of the boa constrictor line, I think, is that depression has stifled her creativity for so long that she has just had it building and building and so she just has to explode, and this music possibly is that explosion. Track number 10 is Cosmonauts, and Fiona uses more of the images from Heavy Balloon on this song, starting with the explosion when she says, "Your face ignites a fuse to my patience, whatever you do is gonna be wrong." This is the post-honeymoon phase moment in a relationship where two people become too familiar and start getting annoyed with each other. But Fiona's latent tendency to explode that she established on Heavy Balloon is now being inflamed by this person's presence, whether or not they actually do anything to annoy her. On the pre-chorus, she says that in this relationship together, they can make lighter of all the heavier. And then on the chorus, she says, "You and I will be like a couple of cosmonauts, except with way more gravity than when we started off." Things are getting real, and the gravity, the heaviness, the real deep problems are emerging. They're just two specks in the universe, and its pull cannot be resisted. There are going to be problems, there's going to be conflict, but maybe together they can make it lighter. On the bridge, she says, "When you resist me, hun, I cease to exist, because I only like the way I look when looking through your eyes." This is a reversal of some earlier ideas, like when she said on the opener, "A sound is a sound around no one." And that may be true of love in general, but it's not true of her alone, independent of that love. When she's alone, there's no one to see her or to hear her, so maybe she doesn't exist. She's Schrodinger's cat. Track number 11 is For Her, and the woman in the title is the wife of a musician. And Fiona says maybe she spent her formative years dealing with his contentious fears and endless jeers at her endless tears, or maybe she just got tired of watching him. The wife is playing second fiddle to her husband, the rock star, who privately mistreats her and who publicly is all performance. And we see a reappearance of Fiona's preoccupation with wasting time on an ill-fated relationship in the form of this woman wasting her formative years on this jerk. On the second verse, we see this guy sniff white off a starlet's breast, treating his wife like less than a guest. She has to watch as her husband indulges in this other woman, but even then, he's just treating her like a table to put his drugs on. She continues, "Never showing weakness until it's awards season. It's the season of the ward." Another great pun there, and what Fiona is saying is the only time this man shows his vulnerability is during award season, a time when they are in his world and he knows what's going on behind the scenes, and so he has to be his wife's steward, her guard. On the bridge, we have probably the most intense line on the album, to the tune, actually, of the song Good Morning, which you might know from Singing in the Rain. She says, good morning, you raped me in the same bed your daughter was born in." We've returned home from the Hollywood scene, from award season, and this rock star's tendency towards domination and abuse has manifested in an assault. And basically that's the crux of the Me Too through line of this album. Track 12 is Drumset. She opens the song saying, "The drum set is gone and the rug it was on is still here screaming at me. Why did you take it all away?" So the trauma of the last song has stolen the music from her life, the essential thing about her, just like the constriction of depression on Heavy Balloon. She says, "Now I understand, you're a human, and you got to lie, you're a man, and you got to get what you want." It's the boys will be boys mantra at its most pernicious. And even if she's not actually accepting that message, of course, her voice in this moment has internalized it in the same way that the revolving door of women were in a cycle of abuse on ladies. She goes on to repeat the same lyrics, but this is the moment when she's giving up on the relationship. She's reached a breaking point, and for good reason, and so the last track will be the come down from that pain. The final track, track 13, is On I Go, and for most of the song she repeats the same verse where she says, "On I go, not toward or away, up until now it was day, next day, up until now in a rush to prove, but now I only move to move." She circled back to letting the breeze move her like on the opener, just minus the complacency. She's not trying to work towards a particular goal or to work against a perception of herself. She's just going to do what she wants because she wants to. On the bridge of sorts, she says, "In the long run, if I get there, it could be alright if I get there in time." This really is the only instance of doubt on this song, where her tendency to see time as leading up to a thing, to an end goal, has led her to doubt whether she will attain this unnameable goal. So she ends the album not without purpose, but without external motivation. She will keep moving and creating, not for a man or for an institution, but for herself. So that's my analysis of each song on Fetch the Bolt Cutters. As you probably could tell, I was absolutely blown away by these lyrics. I have some fun videos planned for the next few weeks, so keep an eye out for those. Please subscribe to be here when I post new videos every week and hit the bell icon to be notified when my videos go live. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you are staying safe and healthy, and until next time, that's it.